Coming to this university and to this city has always felt a bit like coming home to me. Firstly, because my father's family came from this part of Scotland.
The moment Camilla publicly humiliated children during a royal visit sent shockwaves through the entire palace, and King Charles's reaction flipped everything on its head. The world saw a queen consort frozen, rigid, and visibly uncomfortable, but behind the scenes this incident ignited a firestorm that would change her role forever. By 2025, insiders whispered that the stage Camilla had fought so hard to secure was beginning to slip from her grasp. Her position as queen consort had never been universally accepted, and she faced persistent criticism from senior royals, particularly Princess Anne and Prince William. Anne, unflinching in her convictions, openly argued that Camilla should never hold the queen title because of her past affair with Charles, a scandal that had left deep scars on the family. During his marriage to Diana, William had carefully protected his children, refusing to let them accept Camilla as family. Even the late Queen reportedly harboured reservations. Through decades of scrutiny and whispered resentment, Camilla maintained a calm, poised exterior for the cameras, concealing a simmering tension that no one could truly read. Tensions simmered quietly for years, but all of that changed one December morning, a day that would mark a turning point in her public and private standing. December 20th, 2025, the Christmas season, traditionally a time of warmth, joy, and family celebration. For the royal household, this season carried heavier responsibility. It was intended as a moment to reach out to the overlooked, to bring comfort to those in pain, and to acknowledge children and families who could not celebrate in the usual way. King Charles, weakened by a recent cancer diagnosis, had issued a strict and carefully worded memo to the senior royals. The directive was clear. Each member of the family was to spend Christmas visiting orphanages, children's hospitals, nursing homes, hospices, places where care, attention, and human kindness were not luxuries but necessities. These visits were to be quiet, sincere, and heartfelt. No grand gestures, no fanfare, no spectacle, just connection, presence, and empathy. But anyone familiar with royal life knew that quiet was a rare commodity in the palace. The planning fell to Princess Anne, the royal household's undisputed master of precision and order. Known for her unwavering attention to detail and flawless execution, Anne drew up a schedule that left nothing to chance. Every royal had a mission, every minute mattered, and every interaction was orchestrated with the potential to bring genuine hope. Anne knew that the royals weren't just symbols. They had the power to touch lives in ways the public rarely saw. Camilla, paired with Princess Catherine, was assigned to an orphanage and a children's hospital, locations selected with care for their unique needs and the opportunity for meaningful engagement. Prince William was sent to a children's hospice and a military hospital, spaces where his empathy could shine and where his presence alone could bring calm to families and children facing unimaginable challenges. Other royals were dispatched to rehabilitation centres and community homes, each assignment made with foresight and precision. Every detail mattered: arrival times, the flow through rooms, the words spoken to children, the gifts handed out, and even the tone of voice used. Buckingham Palace staff were instructed to maintain perfect order. The entire household bristled with anticipation, quietly proud of the care and precision invested into these visits. December 24th and 26th were set as the official visitation days for Anne, Camilla, and Catherine. Palace corridors hummed softly with activity, staff moving in synchronized rhythm to ensure everything proceeded without a hitch. Camilla arrived first, poised, elegant, and radiating the dignity expected of a queen consort. Catherine followed closely, her warmth and natural charm instantly calming staff and children alike. Princess Anne conducted her final checks with an almost surgical eye, noting each detail, ensuring every moment would have impact. The day began perfectly. Children's laughter echoed through the hallways, eager faces greeted the royals, and the air seemed to shimmer with hope. Catherine knelt naturally to engage with the children, while Camilla followed with measured, carefully maintained grace. Anne observed quietly from a distance, prepared to intervene if necessary. Yet despite meticulous planning, despite perfect execution, the day contained a moment that no one anticipated, a turning point that would leave Camilla exposed in a way the public and palace insiders would never forget. As they moved through the orphanage, Catherine's sharp eyes caught a small figure lingering in the shadows of a slightly open room. Unlike the other children who had rushed to greet the visitors, her gaze was fixed on the window, her body frozen. Catherine leaned slightly toward Anne and Camilla, silently signalling that the girl needed immediate attention. Anne understood instantly and moved quickly, weaving carefully past a few live TV cameras that had been documenting the visit. Camilla hesitated, her posture stiffened, her expression tight. Catherine stepped closer, concern etched on her face. When Camilla still did not respond, Catherine whispered urgently, "Come on, there's a child here. She needs us." Camilla finally glanced into the room, observing Anne already reaching the girl. Indignation flickered across her face. "You don't expect me," she said sharply, her voice low but firm. "Queen Consort to set foot on such a dirty place. You must really be testing me. I am a senior royal, a queen. Respect that." Catherine's eyes widened in shock. "It's not about protocol, it's about her," she whispered back, calm but unyielding. "The child needs your warmth. Step in now." Still, Camilla did not move. Cameras captured every second of her hesitation. Anne gently guided Catherine out of the room. "Don't you know the cameras are rolling? What will they think if they see us arguing?" she asked in a low, urgent voice. Catherine exhaled softly. "It doesn't matter, Anne. Right now it's about her. That's all that matters." Together, they returned. Anne approached the girl, lightly tapping her back. "Hello, princess," she whispered. Slowly, the girl turned, revealing a face marked by deep burn scars that had healed painfully but left permanent reminders of trauma. Catherine crouched, meeting her gaze. "Hello there," she said softly. "What's your name?" "Pearl," the girl whispered, her voice fragile, carrying months of fear and loneliness. Anne's heart clenched. "You're safe now, Pearl," she said gently, offering a reassuring smile. "I promise you're going to be okay. We're here with you." Pearl's voice trembled as she asked almost matter-of-factly, "When is Mummy coming back?" Catherine exchanged a somber glance with Anne. Anne crouched closer. "Can you tell us what happened?" she asked carefully, trying to offer comfort. Pearl hesitated, then her voice cracked. "There was a fire. My brother, sister, and Mommy. They got caught and then they were gone. I stayed in the hospital for months, but the burns, they're still fresh." Her small hand brushed her cheek lightly, as though remembering every ounce of pain she had endured. Pearl's voice trembled, spilling out the pain she had held inside for months. "When the robbers came, they shot my daddy. Mummy said he went to heaven and would come back, but I haven't seen him. And now they tell me Mommy, Vivian, and Maxwell will come back. But it's been 3 months. They don't want to play with me. They say I'm a monster." Her tiny finger pointed toward the other children in the room, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. The weight of isolation and misunderstanding was almost tangible. Anne's expression softened immediately, and she extended a hand to Pearl. "You're not a monster," she said gently. "You're brave, and you are not alone anymore. I'm here, Catherine's here, and we're going to help you." Pearl blinked, hesitant, her voice barely audible. "Really?" "Yes, really," Anne whispered, guiding her toward the doorway. "You are safe now, Pearl. You are a princess, and princesses are never alone. You are loved. People care for you." For the first time in months, Pearl felt seen, not as the girl defined by her burns, her trauma, or her loss, but as a child deserving care, compassion, and protection. Anne held Pearl's small hand firmly as they walked through the orphanage hallways, Catherine quietly walking by their side. Cameras captured the moment, but for the royals, the focus was entirely on Pearl, her healing, her fragile sense of safety, and the first flicker of trust she had allowed herself. Catherine knelt occasionally to offer gentle words, while Anne whispered reminders that Pearl had survived horrors no child should ever know. By the time they returned to the group outside, Pearl's steps were steadier. The other children paused, taking in her presence. She no longer seemed the withdrawn, frightened girl who had hesitated at the window. She was part of something bigger now, a circle of care, support, and empathy. Though her scars remained, Anne and Catherine saw the spark of hope reignite in her eyes. "Pearl," Anne said softly, bending down, "you're going to be okay. We're going to help you. You will laugh, play, and feel safe again. I promise." Pearl's small tears continued to fall, but now a tiny smile began to break through. Trust was forming, fragile, but undeniable. Anne held her hand a moment longer. "You are not alone. You are not forgotten. And you are loved." As they moved back toward the main hall, Catherine and Anne exchanged a glance, a silent acknowledgement of the enormity of the moment, the pain they had witnessed, the resilience they had seen, and the quiet truth that sometimes presence and kindness mattered more than protocol or status. But as the warmth of human connection grew, the tension that had been simmering all morning flared again. Camilla adjusted her posture, signalling that she was ready to deliver her prepared speech. The event was drawing to a close, but her impatience was obvious. Royals had been at the orphanage for nearly an hour, and she wanted to leave. Anne still held Pearl's hand, gently transferring her to Catherine, whispering words of reassurance. Pearl's tiny fingers clung tightly to Catherine's hand, trust forming slowly after the morning's emotional encounters. Turning to Camilla, Anne's voice was firm. "What is the meaning of this? You can't rush through. There are children here who need attention, not just words." Camilla's expression tightened. "It stinks here," she said, the words sharp, her tone dripping with thinly veiled disdain. "The children are crying. The halls smell. I wasn't made to linger in such conditions." Anne's eyes narrowed. "That's no excuse. You are meant to lead by example. Even if you wish to leave, you should never have started the speech without ensuring the children were cared for. Responsibility comes with your title. Act like it." Camilla's lips curled in irritation. "Who put you in charge? I'm the Queen Consort, not you. I hold the title. You are not in charge here." The cameras captured every tense moment, every silent exchange. Anne kept her composure, subtly signalling the staff to maintain the flow of the event. Camilla eventually delivered a hurried speech, attempting to fulfill her obligation, but her words lacked warmth. Catherine knelt among the children, sharing smiles and gentle words. Pearl remained close to Anne, small face gradually lighting up with care and attention. 40 minutes later, at precisely 2:30, Camilla took the microphone again. Anne did not intervene this time, though the tension in the room was palpable. Camilla began, her voice dripping with thinly veiled disdain. "It is certainly something to be here in these conditions. One must admire the resilience of the children trying to make sense of such untidiness and disorder. I see little faces attempting to smile amid chaos, though I imagine some of you might notice the less than pleasant air. Truly, it takes patience to endure this environment day after day." Adults shifted uncomfortably. Some children looked confused. Catherine instinctively moved closer to Pearl, who clutched her sleeve. Camilla's gaze flitted between Anne and Catherine. "How exactly do you both manage to supervise such a place? Surely skill and competence are required, though I see only effort." The head of the orphanage, Mrs. Smith, stared, clutching the ceremonial check. Camilla handed it over almost incidentally. The sting of her words lingered, leaving staff and children silent, unsure how to respond. Then Anne stepped forward, calm but firm, her voice carrying warmth and authority. "Ladies and gentlemen, children, we are here to recognize courage, not mock it. These children have endured challenges no one should face, yet they remain hopeful, resilient, and full of potential. The staff, and everyone helping here, deserves respect and appreciation." She knelt to meet Pearl's eyes. "You are not alone. You are seen. You are valued. You are loved. All the children here belong to a family that cares. We honor your dignity and your strength." Anne's voice softened further as she addressed the other children and guardians. "Let's make sure Pearl feels safe and welcome. She has shown immense bravery. Today we honor her story and the stories of all of you." Pearl's eyes glistened with tears as the older children began to cry too, moved by recognition and courage. Catherine held her hand gently. "We will return," she promised softly, "and we'll make sure every one of you knows you are important and loved." By the time the royals left, the atmosphere had transformed. The hall, once thick with tension and insult, now radiated warmth and connection. Pearl, once isolated, was slowly embraced by the other children. Tentative laughter returned, and fragile threads of friendship began to form, a sight no one present would forget. Back at Buckingham Palace, the atmosphere was thick with tension, almost suffocating. The events at the orphanage hadn't stayed contained. They had exploded across the world within hours. Clips of Anne holding Pearl's small, scarred hand, Catherine's gentle presence, the tender moments of comfort, all painted a picture of humanity and grace. But other outlets were far less kind. Camilla's speech, mocking, sharp, and dripping with thinly veiled disdain, was replayed endlessly, every word dissected, every expression scrutinized. The Crown's image, carefully curated for decades, was under siege. In the relentless pace of modern media, bad news travels faster than good, and Camilla's comments about dirt, smell, and the supposed chaos of the orphanage dominated the narrative. Kindness toward Pearl became secondary, buried beneath outrage and criticism. Social media erupted. On X, formerly Twitter, hashtags like #respect. The children went viral in mere hours, trending across continents. Users voiced raw, unfiltered opinions. One post read, "These children didn't choose their circumstances. A crown doesn't give anyone the right to mock suffering. Respect the children." Another said, "Princess Anne showed what leadership looks like today, compassion over ego." The rest was shameful. A third went even further. "If this is what royalty thinks of vulnerable children, maybe it's time they stopped pretending to care." The comments multiplied, spreading like wildfire, each one further cementing the palace's embarrassment. Inside Buckingham Palace, it felt like a battlefield. Advisors ran from room to room, phones pressed to their ears, panic etched into every face. Public relations teams argued feverishly over wording, timing, and strategy. Should they respond immediately? Remain silent? Issue an apology? Every potential path seemed disastrous. No official statement emerged. The palace's carefully maintained image, its aura of dignity and control, was unraveling. By nightfall, internal reports revealed the stark reality. Approval ratings had plunged 15% in less than 12 hours. Unprecedented. Never had a single royal visit caused such a precipitous drop in public perception. Worse still, the palace had no clear path forward. The silence only fueled speculation, and speculation hardened into public anger. The shock intensified the next morning. Buckingham Palace received an urgent letter marked "Immediate Attention" from the director of St. Joseph's Hospital, the very site where Camilla, Anne, and Catherine were scheduled to visit on December 26th. The letter was polite and measured, but carried a crushing weight. Given the recent media backlash, the director wrote, he did not believe it was appropriate for a royal visit at this time. His priority, he explained, was to protect the patient's, staff, and hospital's reputation. It was a refusal, open, written, undeniable. Never before had a royal household been turned away like this. Silence and polite words aside, the message was clear. The institution would not tolerate a visit under these circumstances. The letter passed from hand to hand, the staff frozen in disbelief. This was not merely a setback, it was a public rebuke, an insult delivered in black and white. The implications were chilling. If one respected institution could say no to the royals, others might follow. The authority of the crown, long unquestioned, suddenly seemed fragile. By mid-morning, word of the letter reached King Charles. Sitting quietly with his medical advisors, already weakened by treatment, the news struck hard. Approval ratings, viral outrage, public rejection, all converged to form a single, terrifying truth. This was no isolated incident. Every detail landed like a hammer. Camilla's speech, the media frenzy, social media fury, the hospital's refusal, the monarchy's image, carefully nurtured over generations, was now at stake. The king's face hardened as the weight of the situation fully settled. He understood, with crystal clarity, that the events at the orphanage were not fleeting. They marked a turning point, one from which there was no casual recovery. Without delay, he summoned his son, Prince William, and Princess Anne to his private study. The air was heavy, charged with unspoken understanding. This was not a meeting for debate or delay. The king's tone broke the silence immediately, calm yet resolute. "Anne," he said, his voice steady but layered with regret. "I owe you an apology. What happened was unacceptable." Anne's eyes met his, steady but her jaw tight. She had witnessed the fallout firsthand, the media storm, the public outrage, the children's pain, but she remained composed, understanding the gravity of his acknowledgement. "Your leadership today," King Charles continued, voice quiet but intense. "Your compassion, it's the example this family should follow, not arrogance, not ego, not words that wound the very children we are meant to protect." Prince William remained silent but alert, absorbing the weight of the situation. He had seen the reports, the viral posts, the criticism, and the unprecedented refusal from the hospital. Each element underscored a painful reality. The Crown's authority, long considered absolute, was now being tested. The King leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temple, considering the decisions that had led to this moment. Every misstep, every miscalculation, every careless word now loomed large. The palace, which had once operated with unchallenged dignity, was under scrutiny from a world unwilling to accept pretension or false compassion. King Charles exhaled slowly, his voice low but firm. "We will act. This is not just about one speech, one visit, or one royal's behaviour. This is about the integrity of the monarchy itself. I will not allow it to crumble in a single morning. Anne, William, we must restore what has been shaken, with dignity, with care, and with focus on the people who matter most. The children, the staff, the public. They must see our commitment, not our ego." The room was silent again, but now it carried purpose, a renewed determination. The turning point had arrived. The orphanage incident, viral outrage, Camilla's public misstep, the hospital refusal, they had all converged into a moment of reckoning. And King Charles knew, from this day forward, there would be no hiding behind protocol, titles, or appearances. Real action was demanded, and the monarchy would either rise to the occasion or falter. The room was thick with a tense, almost electric silence. King Charles's eyes scanned the two figures before him. "You were insulted while carrying out your duty," he said, voice steady but brimming with authority. "And that should never have been allowed to happen." Anne inclined her head slightly, her expression composed and unwavering. She didn't need words. Her quiet acceptance spoke volumes. The apology, coming directly from the King himself, carried a weight far beyond protocol. Charles turned slowly toward William and Anne. His gaze was sharp, resolute, filled with the clarity of someone who had carried the crown through decades of challenges. "I will act immediately," he declared, voice echoing with finality. The room fell silent, but this silence was not fear. It was the weight of a moment that demanded action. "The title of Queen Consort will be stripped effective today." His words hit the room with the force of a gavel. There were no gasps, no attempts to soften the blow. William and Anne exchanged a glance, understanding immediately. There was no need to question, no room for negotiation. They nodded in agreement, their trust in the King absolute. This was about principle, not politics, about duty, not convenience. The three rose together, paying their respects in quiet acknowledgement, then exited the room. Moments later, Charles summoned his communications and social media team. There was no hesitation, no drawn-out debates. This was a man determined to act with clarity and conviction. An official statement was drafted, reviewed just once, and released immediately across all royal channels. Following recent events and the conduct displayed during a charitable visit, it has become necessary to clarify the values of the Crown. Compassion, humility, and respect, especially toward the vulnerable, are the foundations of our service. Any behavior that contradicts these principles, regardless of status, is unacceptable. Effective immediately, the title bestowed upon my wife has been withdrawn. While she remains my wife and will continue to reside within the palace, she will no longer hold royal duties or privileges. I offer my deepest apologies to the children, staff, and institutions affected. But Charles did not stop there. That same day, he personally called the medical director of St. Joseph's Hospital. There were no scripts, no carefully prepared speeches. He spoke not as a monarch, but as a father and as a man who understood the weight of disappointment and the damage caused. He listened, acknowledged the harm, and took full responsibility. By the end of the call, the hospital agreed to reinstate the visit. Within hours, headlines exploded worldwide. Commentators hailed the king's decisiveness, praising his dignity, accountability, and swift action. Social media erupted in approval. "Finally, leadership at the highest level," one user exclaimed. Another wrote, "The crown chose humanity over image." And yet another said, "This is what accountability looks like." The sentiment was universal. The monarchy had, for the first time in years, acted decisively and humanely. The next day, Princess Anne and Catherine arrived at St. Joseph's Hospital. Cameras captured the quiet, tender moments, the hands held, the smiles shared, the laughter of children returning after a long morning of emotional intensity. Families felt seen and valued. The visit was a triumph of compassion over protocol, care over appearance. There was no sign of Camilla. Her presence, once thought unshakable, had quietly disappeared. Her misstep, the speech, the humiliation, the ego, had removed her from the stage entirely. And as history would show, when someone misplays the platform they were given, no amount of titles or privilege can restore it. This was a lesson she would learn the hard way. As the royals left the hospital, Charles reflected on the day's events. This was not just about one visit, one speech, or one royal's actions. It was a statement. Accountability matters, compassion matters, and titles are meaningless without the values they are meant to represent. So, what do you think? Could the royal family have handled Camilla's situation differently? What does this teach us about responsibility, privilege, and the real meaning of leadership in today's monarchy? Share your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear your take on this turning point. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into palace drama, don't forget to like this video, share it with friends, and subscribe for more behind-the-scenes stories from the royal family. Plus, click the video showing on your screen now. You won't want to miss the next chapter of this incredible saga.